Now this is it. Unless Codemasters does another Rally DLC, this finishes their country and setup guide series.
Bugger! That's Gene me in the bulk. Now I look like a total Egypt without Finland pump. There really was another location in the works. Now welcome to lucky number 13 of the country and setup guides, visiting the rainy forests of northern Great Britain, just about entering the area known as Highlands of Scotland. As usual, we turn our first attention towards the setup. Now, I find Scotland to be unique enough to get its own special setup attention, although a setup for Poland seems to work acceptable, if you don't fancy much editing your existing setups. The similarity is in a very smooth gravel surface and a lot of very fast sections along the stages. So the gearing I'd recommend long enough to get to serious speed, and the springs and sway bars should be harder and stiffer respectively to plant your car down in the corners. Where I would differ from Poland is in the ride height, which also affects some other things. Since the jumps here are not as numerous and not as high, you can get away with quite a bit lower height. I figured just a tiny bit below the center to be nice. You also rarely have high road edges to overcome. On the contrary, most of the roadside is a ditch. These ditches are the main limit in height, as you want to avoid bottoming out when you dip one or two wheels into them. Once you've found a workable height, make the springs even harder as much as you need to compensate the jump landings, and adjust the dampers accordingly, to the same logics as described in all previous guides. The result is a reasonably low and hard car, so you can really put the hammer down here. A small side note at this point: with the new location I've seen some complaints that the setup slots are now overfilled for gravel, as in you cannot save a dedicated gravel setup for all locations. But honestly, do you need to? I explained in the America guide how I see little to no difference between the driving in Poland and the USA. Why not use the same setup there and voila, you have enough slots. If you really use different ones between the two, I'd be curious to know what you adjust differently. But back to the Scottish Highlands. Now you have the setup to put the hammer down, but here, more than anywhere else, you also need the right insanity to do so. Let's look at it in driving. Now, in terms of skill, this is certainly one of the most difficult locations. The main challenge here is how narrow the fastest path is and how quickly things can go south when you leave it. Not only is the road quite a bit tighter than in other places, but the roadside is also littered with many inconvenient things. This makes the room for error incredibly small if you want to take the fastest line. You will need a high level of precision in your car's placement to succeed here, which might require a lot more practice for some. In the sense of precision, it is comparable to Argentina. But while you need to be precise in Argentina, despite the bumpiness, here in Scotland you need to be precise despite the speed. Listen carefully to your co-pilot and approach corners a tad more cautious if you are unsure. I also advise you to imagine every single corner as a don't cut. There are just so many things along them that you never know for sure. The mildest of these are the aforementioned ditches. If you dip into them, it will slow you down and upset your car, but compared to the rest, these are barely an inconvenience. What can be really bothering and crash-inducing are all those logs, tree stumps, rocks and boulders, logs and ditches, logs on both sides, big trees, or a combination of them all, often lingering behind blind crests approaching at ridiculous speeds. Even areas that look safe to drive might hide some unforeseen crash causes along them, as demonstrated here, involuntarily. Some other deceiving fellows are those things looking like bushes, but actually being small trees. Your car will get through them, but it cannot do so unharmed. They will act like crashing into a sheep. So try to keep a safe distance to those as well. It might require a lot more skill to be fast here than in other locations, and this can only be gained by practicing and improving car control. The best advice for Scotland would be to embrace the rally mindset and to press on regardless. Accept the thought that you will make mistakes, crash, go off the road or worse. But for as long as the car drives, continue pushing on, continue to bring it to a finish. To finish first, you first have to finish. And this rally is difficult for everyone. When driving against others in leagues or online events, you may get good results just by getting your car to the final time control. And I think this should be the main takeaway from this video here. So, hopefully you will find my advice helpful, and I wish you all the necessary resilience to succeed in the Scottish Highlands. And whenever you find yourself crashed in the woods here again, think about this uplifting quote from Finnish driver Juha Kankunen. The speed was okay, but the corner was too tight. Until next time, skål!